Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today, Dr. Ross Marcagiani, with another Word of the Week at Turnpaugh Health and Wellness Center. Today's Word of the Week is going to be fatigue. This is something that everyone deals with at some point in their life, and I just want to make sure we cover some foundational pieces to correcting fatigue and making sure we're not missing any of that low-hanging fruit. So we'll be talking about what is driving your fatigue, what we want to check for or test for when we're evaluating where your fatigue is coming from, and then ways to address your fatigue. Let's dive in. So, what is driving your fatigue? Now, again, I know there can be a lot of contributing issues to driving your fatigue, but let's make sure we don't miss that low-hanging fruit. So, number one, the most important thing, which I know everyone is aware of, is stress. But more importantly, how you handle and deal with stress. Making sure when I tell my patients that you have appropriate coping mechanisms, meaning you're not running to alcohol, you're not running to drugs, you're not running to food. A lot of us do. Myself am guilty, but I have to be aware and cognizant and create other healthy coping mechanisms. For me, it's exercise, it's meditation, it's being grounded and spending time in the grass and connected to the earth. That's how I cope appropriately. So trying to correct those coping mechanisms, getting away from that food or the wine or the cigarette, and try to cope appropriately. Another big thing here is sleep. Sleep is going to drive significant fatigue. If you're not stringing good nights of sleep together around 8 hours a night, well rested, getting into your delta or your deep REM sleep, you're going to be struggling. We want to make sure we look at underlying infections, so making sure that Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme disease, co-infections of Lyme disease, mycoplasma pneumoniae, cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex, or various herpes simplex viruses aren't driving your fatigue. We want to be able to evaluate that. We want to evaluate mycotoxins. Even though your house might not see any direct mold, but looking for water damage in the past, or even if you don't smell that musty smell, evaluating if you have mycotoxin exposure, which can drive your fatigue. Inflammation, which can be driven from a poor diet, and also inflammation causing mitochondrial damage. Mitochondria are what make our ATP and give us energy. And then we also want to look at HPA, HPT axis dysfunction. So this is hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis dysregulation. So we want to make sure we look at those body systems. Now, what are we going to test for? We can do an at-home sleep study to make sure we don't have sleep apnea. We can run something called medical diagnostic laboratory testing in the office that looks at infections, pathogens, and possible co-infections. We can run a mycotoxin urine screen to look at your levels of mycotoxins in the body. We can run something called a mito swab that looks at the function of your mitochondria. Okay? And then we'll make sure we run blood markers. So we look at your CBC, a CMP, we look at your inflammation here, the high sensitive CRP. We look at your cortisol, your pregnenolone, your DHEA. We evaluate your adrenal glands. We look at your T4, T3, free T4, TSH, antibodies of your thyroid. And we can look at other vitamins such as your B vitamins, your vitamin A, your vitamin D. We can look at CoQ10. We evaluate your hormones to make sure your hormones aren't drastically low, your testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. So there's a lot of testing that we can evaluate to see where this fatigue is coming from. And then how we want to correct this. Again, let's not miss the low-hanging fruit. If we have sleep issues or sleep apnea, getting a CPAP. If you're having struggles with your circadian rhythm, which is your sleep pattern, your sleep cycle, using things like theanine, glycine powder. Everyone knows about melatonin, using lemon balm, using myo-inositol. These are things that can help to regulate and normalize your sleep. But ultimately, we want to look at the adrenal glands here and the thyroid to evaluate if there isn't bigger issues or your sleep is being affected by body systems. Like we talked about earlier, we have proper outlets for stress management. So make sure you're trying to think actively on what is a healthier mechanism to deal and cope with stress. We want to make sure we have a nutrition dialed in. First and foremost, our nutrition has to be good here. We want to avoid gluten, we want to avoid dairy, but with those stressed out individuals, we want to try to keep our healthy carbs up in the form of using a little bit of white potato. I prefer sweet potato, and doing some fruits. We just have to be careful we don't overdo it, because fruits can cause issues with the liver, because that's where your fructose, fruit sugar, is mainly broken down. But the reason why we want to keep carbs up, because it helps to stabilize the blood sugar, and we don't have drastic highs or drastic lows in blood sugar, which could further potentiate fatigue. We want to talk about using IV, intravenous NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So this is something that helps the mitochondria repair. Actually, you can see the link below here if you want to look more into this. That link will actually bring you to an FDA-approved PowerPoint that talks about the use of NAD for chronic fatigue syndrome. So really powerful there. And then we can use, again, some things like pregnenolone, DHEA. We can use various adaptogenic herbs such as ashwagandha, rhodiola, ganoderma. We can use cordyceps. These are all really good, powerful adaptogenic herbs that help to modulate and regulate our energy. We can use licorice root. We can use nicotinamide riboside, which is a precursor to the NAD, which will help your mitochondria. You can use CoQ10, which is another aspect that will help the mitochondria. Alpha lipoic acid, glutathione. Now getting into some of the basics, such as BCAAs, your branched chain amino acids, some trace minerals, making sure you have adequate B vitamins, making sure you have adequate vitamin D, vitamin A, just making sure we don't miss some of the basics here, because these can be crucial into bumping up and boosting our fatigue and our energy levels here. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to dive more into what's driving your fatigue, please don't hesitate to reach out to the office, and let's figure out what's going on here. Thank you for your time, and please share this with anyone who can benefit. We're in this together to make the world a healthier and happier place. Thanks. Have a great day.